Hi everyone. I apologize again for canceling class last night because I was sick with the flu. But I'm hanging in bed today, and I thought just real quick I might post something to get your thought moving about rhetoric. Because in fact something good did come out of this illness. You ever have fever dreams? Well, last night, of course, I was having these awful fever dreams, and I hate what my brain does when I have a fever and I'm sleeping. I can remember when I was a kid, I used to have these repeating fever dreams when I was sick, recurring ones where like Mickey Mouse would be doing a news broadcast in some nonsense language that I couldn't understand, just on a loop all night long, but like not in a humorous way, just totally like in a like as if he was like fake news progenitor Dan Rather, just in a blah blah blah, this is the news way. And it was really horrifying as a kid, but I still get these really weird fever dreams. And last night, about 2:30 a.m., I woke up because my stomach was really hurting me, and all of a sudden it jumped into my head, this passage from Revelation, where John, the author of the Revelation, eats this scroll that's given to him by an angel, I think. And the angel says, look, this scroll is going to taste sweet in your mouth, but it's going to be bitter to your stomach. And so then I woke up, when I had woken up and I had this in my mind while my stomach was hurting, and I started thinking of all these different instances in culture and literary history where there's this eating of texts. And I made a note to myself in the midst of all this, while I was laying in bed shivering, I got to remember this tomorrow morning because I'm interested to see how many examples of this we can come up with. So this morning, on further reflection, I thought, well, we should probably call this phenomenon of eating texts something like logophagia. That is logos, the word, and phagia, eating. Sometimes you hear that word get tossed around in the same way we use the term like bookworm, like somebody who loves to consume books and texts. But here we mean it literally, like eating a book. So I wanted to walk through you some of these passages, biblical passages that I found, and then maybe a couple of the pop cultural ones that I've thought of. And then I have some requests for you. So you don't have to follow along with me if you don't want in the New Testament, but I'll read a couple passages. So this is in Revelation chapter 10, supposedly written by the Apostle John of the end days, and it's an end times book that tells us what's going to happen at the end of the world. And so 10 says, Then I saw another mighty angel coming down from the heaven wrapped in a cloud, and with a rainbow over his head. His face was like the sun, and his legs like pillars of fire. And he had a little scroll open in his hand. And he set his right foot on the sea, and his left foot on the land, and called out with a loud voice like a lion roaring. When he called, the seven thunders sounded. And when the seven thunders had sounded, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from heaven saying, Seal up what the seven thunders have said, and do not write it down. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there would be no more delay, but that in the days of the trumpet call to be sounded by the seventh angel, the mystery of God would be revealed, mystery of God would be fulfilled, just as he announced to his servants, the prophets. Then the voice that I heard from heaven spoke to me again, saying, Go, take the scroll that is open in the hand of the angel who's standing on the sea and on the land. So I went to the angel and told him to give me the little scroll. And the angel said to me, Take and eat it. It'll make your stomach bitter, but in your mouth it will be sweet as honey. And I took the little scroll from the hand of the angel and I ate it. It was sweet as honey in my mouth, but when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. And I was told, you must again prophesy about many peoples and nations and languages and kings. And so here we have this idea that eating this sacred scroll is what prepares John for the prophetic task, speaking the future of the kingdom of God. And it's kind of dark. It's a weird image. And as I was laying in bed, I also thought of the major prophets, Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Jeremiah, and their calling to prophecy. And so we find in Ezekiel, let's see, I'm not sure who's talking to here. Maybe an angel. He spoke to me. Okay, this is the Spirit of God. This is in Ezekiel chapter 2, the end of chapter 2 and the beginning of 3. But you, son of man, hear what I say to you. Be not rebellious like that rebellious house, that is Israel. Open your mouth and eat what I give you. And when I looked, behold, a hand was stretched out to me. He's seeing a vision. And behold, a scroll of a book was in it. And he spread it before me. And it had writing on the front and on the back. And there were written on it words of lamentation and mourning and woe. And he said to me, Son of man, eat whatever you find here. Eat this scroll, and go, speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he gave me the scroll to eat. And he said to me, Son of man, feed your belly with this scroll that I give you, and fill your stomach with it. And then I ate it, and it was in my mouth as sweet as honey. And he said to me, Son of man, go to the house of Israel, and speak my words to them. For you are sent not to a people of foreign speech and hard language, but to the house of Israel, not to many peoples of foreign speech and hard language, whose words you cannot understand. Surely if I sent you to such, they would listen to you, but the house of Israel will not be willing to listen to you, for they are not willing to listen to me, because all the house of Israel have a hard forehead and a stubborn heart. And that passage goes on with some relevant stuff. But what's interesting to me here is that, again, we have a text that's consumed, and in the process gives the prophet the words of prophecy that are to be spoken. And further of interest here is that the words that were written on it were of lamentation, mourning, and woe, and yet it still tastes sweet. So again, we have this similar theme, and I think what we're seeing is a theme of logophagia as a kind of rhetorical indoctrination, an ingestion of rhetorical doctrine. And if we go to Jeremiah, the prophet before Ezekiel, we don't see him eating a scroll, but we do see in chapter 1, Jeremiah says, Then I said, Ah, Lord, behold, I do not know how to speak, for I am only a youth. He's rhetorically unprepared for this task. But the Lord said to me, Do not say I am only a youth, for to all to whom I send you, you shall go. And whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you, declares the Lord. Then the Lord put out his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said to me, Behold, I have put my words in your mouth. See, I have set you this day over nations and over kingdoms, to pluck up and to break down, to destroy and to overthrow, to build and to plant. And the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Jeremiah, what do you see? And I said, I see an almond branch. And then the Lord said to me, You've seen well, for I am watching over my word to perform it. And that goes on. But again, there's this putting the words in the mouth. In this case, by a touch from the hand of God, presumably. And in Isaiah, we see that is the prophet before Jeremiah, where we see Isaiah's call. This happens a little later in the book. It happens in chapter 6. Isaiah begins that by saying, In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. And above him stood the seraphim. Each had 6 wings, and with 2 he covered his face, and with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the foundations of the threshold shook at the voice of him who called, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe is me, for I am lost, for I am a man of unclean lips. And I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips, for my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. He means by a man of unclean lips that he speaks untruth and speaks nasty things. He says bad things. And then one of the seraphim flew over to me, and having in his hand a burning coal that he had taken with tongs from the altar, he touched my mouth and said, Behold, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin is atoned for. And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send to go prophecy? And who will go for us? And then I said, Here I am, send me. And so here we have the case of a hot coal being put on somebody's tongue and lips to cleanse it, to purify it for prophecy in the Word of God. So these 3 or 4 passages were kind of going through my head as I tossed and turned last night. And this idea of rhetorical indoctrination, as it takes shape through these images of orality and eating or consumption or ingestion of text and thereby rhetoric. When I got up this morning, I was wondering, well, these certainly aren't just biblical metaphors or themes. These are probably really old themes that occur in a number of places. And for all I know, there may already be a lot of rhetorical scholarship on this logophagia. But I haven't checked, the research yet to see what's out there. But I want to start thinking of other examples, and one that I thought about was the movie Misery, where this crazy woman, I think in Maine or Vermont, probably Maine because it's a Stephen King book, but in the film, James Caan plays this author, Paul Sheldon, who is imprisoned by this crazy lady after he has an accident. And this crazy lady is his number 1 fan, is crazy about his books. And this, in particular, this one character that he writes about. But she finds his newest book, and he plans to kill this main character. And she just has decided that this can't happen. And so she forces him to write a new book that brings this character back to life. All the while, Paul Sheldon, the author, is trying to find the means to escape from his captivity in her house. And finally, in one of the penultimate scenes, which I'm sure you could find on YouTube, they finally get into this physical fight. And he's burned the manuscript of the book that he has written for her. This book that reverses the character's death. And as he's punching her on the floor, he's grabbing, if I remember correctly, chunks of the ashes of this manuscript and just stuffing them into her mouth. And here again we have a logophagia, right? An eating of the words. And in this case, it seems to be a weird instance where Paul Sheldon, the actor, is returning the words to her who made him speak them against his will. It's a very powerful image. And so sometimes we have this passive feeding of texts and words, as in the scriptural cases, where somebody says, eat this scroll, and the person does it. In other cases, we have this forceful ingestion of the scroll, as in the case of Misery. And I asked some friends on a group chat that I have, what are some other examples that you could think of people eating texts? One of them mentioned, shout out to Scott Council, good friend up in Cleveland. One of them mentioned the Naked Gun, 33 1/3, where there's some prison escape plans that, what's his name? I want to say Leslie Nielsen, but I might be wrong. I'm still sick. Whatever that comedic character is, and he gets these plans back, and during a prison riot, he's working on eating them humorously, and sometimes with putting sauce on them or making them into a sandwich. So there's one example. Another example that my friend Scott pointed out to me is an example from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where Mac, if you watch this comedic show, eats a contract that they had, that Sweet D had brokered to get all of the merchandising money for Patty's Pub. And so in this way, he kind of kills the record of the speech by consuming it. So in this case, it's not really a preservation or a transference of the content of the text, but rather an elimination of it. And Scott also gave me a third example, and that was from the movie Red Dragon, where apparently some killer in the making, I think I saw this movie, but I don't remember when, but I watched the clip on YouTube that's relevant. And you guys could check out clips to all this stuff too. He rips up a painting from William Blake, I guess, and starts consuming it, either to, I don't know, I haven't seen the movie, but either to counter this killer instinct that's taking him over, or to indulge in it. Either way, I've sort of spent this morning laying in bed and following these ideas about logophagia. And I wonder, like, now I'm curious about writing an article on this, if there don't already exist 30 or 40 of them, which there may. But, what do these scenes of eating text tell us about rhetoric and textuality? For better or worse, they seem to be metaphors for a kind of rhetorical indoctrination. And it would be interesting to explore that further. I thought that I would share this with you because at the end of the semester, you'll all have to write a rhetorical analytic essay. And this is an example of what I think would be a fine topic for that essay, is sort of exploring the rhetorical implications of logophagia, the eating of text. But I also wanted to post this because if you guys can think of other instances of logophagia in text, movies, songs, or other ancient literature that is not biblical, I'd be interested to hear about it in the comments, so you can help me develop some of these ideas. Some of my more humorously inclined friends on the group chat said, well, what about a birthday cake? You're eating text then. But I think they were just trolling me, because that's obviously an incidental eating of the text. We wrote on the cake, but the cake was originally something to be eaten anyways, so whereas the traditional text isn't. But I'm interested to hear any of the examples you can come up with, and to encourage you to take this instance to think about, well, what areas, what phenomena would I be interested in analyzing from a rhetorical perspective? For those of you in my grad class, hopefully at some point this weekend I'll post some lectures on Aristotle's rhetoric to make up for the class that we missed last night. Again, I'm very sorry to have missed it. And so there you have it. Talk to you soon.